30 seconds.
Right there?
Well, I don't have to shout at you.
All right.
Oh, he likes to shout. Yeah, I know. It's not
Is the light bright enough?
Oh, no, my light's good.
Okay.
I should have wore sunblock.
You'll feel the heat. 15.
Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2019 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGillivray Speedway at 30th and High School in the beautiful town of Speedway. And when you come into town for the NASCAR event, you got to make sure you stop by McGillivrays. They got great food, great service, and of course, the adult beverages are ice cold. Tonight's show is presented, as always, by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, and SVRA. Got a couple of things to mention. First off, a day or so ago, one of our regulars here had a birthday. Happy birthday to Suzanne Smith. I think she celebrated the 20th anniversary of her 21st birthday, but I'm not sure. I'm sure most of you are aware that Scott Dixon got a huge award from the Queen on her birthday honors. He is to receive the Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit. Super deserving guy, and it's not because necessarily his athletic what he did, but the kind of person that he is, and very deserving. How many people like the Indy 500? How many people like the winner? Yeah, it was a good race. I have a couple of gentlemen in here that we're going to discuss why something happened that I thought was a little disturbing. Well, I mean, I'm anyway, but I thought a little disturbing. How about Detroit? Everybody like the Twins in Detroit? Got kind of quiet in here. What happened? Okay, there's one. Okay. I thought it was kind of nice that Scott went from the outhouse to the penthouse between Saturday and Sunday. Heck of a driver, there's no question. And I've got to wish to get well quick to who is home sick with what Eileen says she thinks is the flu. So, Carl, if you're listening, get well. And in case you hadn't heard yet, Connor Daly will be in the seat at Texas. He's driving the Carlin car. He's driving for the Carlin because Max Chilton is only going to run road races. He doesn't want to run the ovals anymore. So Connor's in it, and hopefully he will lay an egg when he gets a chance, or somebody does.
Brutal.
So maybe he'll get to run the rest of them, ovals. Now, next week, my first guest, a real charmer, really a personable guy, Paul Diatlovich will be here. And if you haven't heard him talk, you're in for a treat. Do you have trouble with your computer? I do, constantly, actually. Give Jack a call at Computer Overdrive. Tell him your problem. The number is 317-328-0766. I guarantee you he can fix it, probably faster than you messed it up. And if you have a dental problem, do what we do. And Sharon was just there yesterday. The Indy Dental Group, Dr. Jack Miller and Dr. Liz Lewis, have a phenomenal practice. Make an appointment call at 317-846-6125. And for those of you who don't know yet, the Milwaukee Mile is still alive. And do you like vintage Indy cars? Well, the roar of yesteryear is back. The Vintage Indy Registry presents the Legends of the Mile. Vintage Indy cars will be at the Milwaukee Mile June 15th and 16th in companionship with the ARCA Midwest Tour Father's Day 75. It'll be a full field of legendary cars, and you'll see them on the track for the 2 days. So check it out, get up there. It'll be a great time, and of course the Milwaukee Mile, there's nothing better. Hopefully it'll come back again, but who knows. And if you are a vintage car fan, you've got to subscribe to the Speed Tour of SVRA. Just go to svra.com and subscribe to the magazine. It is top shelf, top class, and you'll get a lot of information you didn't know about. And speaking of SVRA, the next event is on where is it? June 20th to the 23rd, the 2019 Vintage Grand Prix at Mid-Ohio. If you want to see a great field of cars, vintage cars, that's where you got to go. Now, my first guest is a gentleman that I have been trying to get for some time, but he has a family, and they're involved in athletics like most kids are, but he's got a break at the moment, so he's in here. I need not say much more. He's a 3-time world champion at NHRA Top Fuel. Please welcome Mr. Larry Dixon.
Thank you. Thanks.
What's it like when somebody says you are a 3-time world champion? Wow.
I guess that depends where you're at in your career. Whether you got work to do or you're proud of what you got. But it's I'm absolutely proud of those championships and the wins.
You got 62 wins.
Yeah, I always say so far.
Yeah, well,
because you never know.
You're young enough. You got another 10 years.
Well, as long as John Force is racing, I got a 20 more year window. I figure. So we'll leave that window open.
What have you been up to? What have you been doing lately?
Not a lot of racing. My kids, my oldest just graduated high school from Avon High School. So so they thank you. I'm as proud of that as anything that I've done in racing. Just being able to raise a kid and have him walk across the stage like that. It's and it definitely it certainly means more than any of the wins or championships. I promise you that. And the class at Avon is it's almost 900 kids. So they had it down at the convention center. So my youngest, we could go down there and he's like, hey, isn't this where they do that automotive? I'm like, PRI? And he said, yeah. So that's down where the PRI show was. So went down there on Friday night and walked across the stage, and it was that was a ball. I had a good time.
Now, as I said, you are a 3-time world champion. I haven't seen your name in the entry list of late, and I haven't seen your name in the win column or semis or anything. What's going on with your career?
It's not a lot of racing. It's to be able to race out there professionally. I don't know that it's any different than insert NASCAR, insert IndyCar, insert World of Outlaws. It's very expensive. And finding that funding to be able to go out there and race, for real, not just show up. It's been a challenge, I'm going to say, over the last, at least for me, the last 5 years. So kind of pulled back a little bit from trying and was kind of working on another exit path, Got stuck in traffic at the first race. I was going out to the Winter Nationals a couple of years ago, and I'm stuck in traffic in LA. Imagine that. If you get on the freeway, you're going to be stuck in traffic. And I thought, man, what about a 2-seat top fuel car? How cool would that be? So first thought was I took the idea to Murph McKinney, chassis builder that did my chassis. He's up in Lafayette. Built all of my championship chassis when I was working for Prud'homme, and said, I got this idea. He thought it was a great idea. He sits on the board of at SFI, which is the committee that approves
everything,
the style and designs of all of the motorsports in the United States. And so I went with him. He come up with a design and built a chassis on a computer and made sure it was safe from that standpoint. And the computer modeling showed it was safer than a conventional top fuel car. Well, then you take the idea to the insurance company to see if they could do something with it. And they were good with it. I actually got to tie into IndyCar, got a lot of help from Sinden and Scott Jessic with the IndyCar experience. They really helped a lot on all the background stuff. So, get everything out on paper, and I take that to the president of NHRA, thinks it's a great idea, and have more meetings, with different people in the company, and they give me a little bit of direction, and so I you stay off of social media with it, and I build the car, and then test the car, and then we debut the car at SEMA, and it was I think everybody in the world but about 3 people loved it.
and I bet it was the wrong.
That wasn't a joke. I'm serious.
And it was the wrong 3 people that didn't like it.
Yeah. So then all of a sudden I had, I've had a little bit of issues. Pete Rose comes to mind a lot lately. So so we've been kind of battling behind the scenes to try and get my life restored, I guess, on track.
Now,
is that a nice way to put it?
Yeah. Yeah. If
as much as I can be.
If I'm not mistaken, it seems to me that among some of the penalties was that you can no longer be a team owner, you can't be a sponsor, you can't work on a car, and you can't drive one. But the drive part's been taken away. You now can drive. Yeah,
I got initially I got suspended indefinitely for having such a car like that. I couldn't drive in competition. I couldn't own a car that was in competition. I couldn't work on a car that was in competition. Couldn't even be on the restricted area of a racetrack. So appealed that. By the rule book, it's supposed to be a 45-day process. So I'm still in good shape for the start of the next season. This is a couple seasons ago, and that took over 6 months, the appeal, instead of 45 days, like the rule book says. So it kind of got drug out a little bit. The appeal, I couldn't go to the appeal. I wasn't allowed to.
Oh, jeez.
And the appeal panel was 3 NHRA employees.
You think it was loaded?
I couldn't even have representation at the appeal. But with all of that said, they dropped all the restrictions. They felt I didn't do anything wrong, but which was good. But nobody knows it because they're supposed to post the rulings the same way that they posted the penalties. Still haven't posted anything, so the rest of the world still thinks I'm in jail.
No, Now, it's my understanding that all the things that you've been put through, you have decided that against what you really want to do, you've got a lawsuit you filed.
Yeah, and it's not one of my prouder moments, but there's a lot of things that I have been trying to get answers and keeping my mouth shut and hoping that it'll all get squared away, and it isn't getting squared away. So after a year and a half of hoping that things would get worked out, it hasn't. So I got to go through this process to get answers, for some of these things, and it's for me. I'm not proud of it at all. But again, it's
what is it you've done?
This is the world we live in. Apparently,
what is it you've done to support your family and yourself for another 25 years? My first paying job, racing or even pit crewing in the NHRA was in 1986. Oh. Last year was the first season I didn't make any money out at the racetrack, like no driving, no crewing, no anything. So in other words, your entire livelihood has been racing, and they put a stop to it. Because you built a car.
It made it a little challenging. Yes.
Now, have you been to the track and said, I can drive again? Has anybody contacted you about, hey, Larry, can you really get in the car and go from here to there?
I've gotten, in the 2 years that this has been going on, I've gotten one phone call just to know my status, where it's at. But it makes it tough because it's almost like you got a cloud over you. And who wants, like if you're a sponsor or another team, like who wants to deal with all that drama? And I understand it. You kind of almost need the sanctioning body to post it so that the world knows it, and then the world knows that they're okay with it. and that part hasn't happened yet.
Well, I mean, how many teams are there in Top Fuel? 10?
Well, I mean, there's few teams have a lot of cars.
Right.
Schumacher forced Coletta, and then beyond that, there's other teams. But at Chicago, the Joliet race over the weekend, you had 18 Top Fuel cars, 18 funny cars. So
that's 18 emails you can send and say I'm available.
For sure, but again, it really makes it look like I'm
looking for a job, looking for a ride. Put it better, looking for a ride.
It doesn't appear that it just doesn't look right. When other people go through kind of the same process and the results are posted. And such, and in this particular case, it isn't. So it's made, and the bummer part for me is like before all this happened, I didn't even get a warning for speeding. I take pride in that, and it's not just for myself, and it's like I'm carrying my dad's name, but I'm also a parent, and so like you're trying to set an example for your kids. So I'm not the guy that pops off or makes noise when maybe there was an opportunity to say it. I'll just try to take the high road on everything and then not poke the bear or anything like that. I didn't. I've appreciated every opportunity that I've ever had out there. It's not it's a privilege to be out there. And I've treated it like that for forever. So it just makes it tough right now.
I know what. Yeah.
That's thank you. That's my dad raising me, I guess, not me.
Now your dad started and was a champion driver.
Yeah.
In his day.
Yeah. That's how I tell people. Why do you drag? And people say, why do you drag race? I'm like, I don't know any better. That's how I was raised.
Did you crew for your dad early on?
Yeah, a little bit, not too much. He didn't like anybody messing with his car, so then I'd go work on other people's cars. So it was, but I loved it. I grew up in Southern California, and there was so many racetracks out there, and it seemed like everybody had Top Fuel cars in the 60s and 70s. It was very affordable, so like, and they fit in everybody's 2-car garages. Like, they were all over the place. So. But growing up, one weekend you'd be at Lions Drag Strip in Long Beach, and then there'd be a far drive would be Orange County, but then you'd have Irwindale and Bakersfield and all these tracks, and you could literally go every weekend and see a Top Fuel show. So it was like Mom would pick me up from school like half day on Friday, and you'd go drive out to the track, and you'd have qualify on Friday night, and then come back and race on Saturday. And and then the far trips, meaning like to Sacramento or Phoenix or something like that, and you drive through the night on Sunday. That's what I want to do. I just want to race all the time, and I thought that was cheating the system by, being able to race.
You worked for Snake as a crewman for 6 years, I think?
Yeah, started there in 1988, and then started driving his car in 1995.
Yeah, and he decided to retire. How did he end up picking you off the mechanical floor and put you in a car?
I don't. Well, to tell you, like Don Perdome, and back then it's not like 8 and 10 pit crew people back then. There's 3 or 4 guys, on the crew, and each guy's, like you take an interest in, what you want to do. You get young guys. What do you want to be? Well, I want to be a crew chief. Or this guy, got another guy. I don't want to do anything other than what crew. Okay, that's good. What about you? I want to drive. Really? You think you can do it? And I'm like. Like you think you can, but you don't know. And so there was one winter for a Christmas bonus. He sent me down to Frank Hawley's school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was awesome. And then I got into what we call dragsters, what we call open wheel cars in drag racing. An alcohol dragster, and be able to go down the track with it. And it was definitely enlightening. The amount of power even those cars make back then. I think I ran 6.5 seconds in the quarter mile at 220 mile an hour, but it was so fast from anything that I'd ever been in. So much power and so light. It was impressive. And then I didn't do anything dumb there. So then I worked for a little while longer, and then there was other guys that were moving up. They'd race in alcohol dragster, kind of like Indy Lights, and then they'd move up. And I'm working on the pit crew. I'm not going anywhere. And then I'm seeing all these other guys, and when I say other guys, like Corey Mack and all three of the Petragon brothers, and Pat Austin and Blaine Johnson, and there were so many people that raced in alcohol and then moved up to fuel, and I'm there lapping valves on cylinder heads, not doing anything. And Roland Leong is that owned all the Hawaiian funny cars through the years and stuff. He was the one that really kicked me in the rear. It's like, if you're going to do this, you better do it now, because before you get married, you buy a house and you can't afford to get out, So I found an alcohol team that would, let me drive their car. And so I actually quit Snakes for about 6 months, and I went and did this full time. I'm up in Montana, which there was like 12 people in this town, Ennis, Montana. And I don't lie when I say that the closest fast food, they had three bars in this town, 3 bars, 1 hotel, and the closest Taco Bell was in Bozeman, 45 minutes away. And let me tell you, I would go there weekly, But I didn't care. I wanted to race, and so I worked on the car for free. And he let me drive it, and had to come up with some oil deals and some of that. And so I ran my savings down and ran my credit cards up, and I did that for as long as I could. And then I had to go back crewing because I still had to pay rent. And so the first place I went back to was Perdome's. And he's like, well, he goes, you want to drive? Like, you don't need to be here crewing anymore. I'm like, yeah, I want to drive, but I need to eat. So I want, I can drive. I'm good, but I want a crew job. So that was the first place I went. And he had just announced that was going to be his last season racing. The following season, that would have been 1994. His whole team, he had a terrible, terrible year in 93. I think he literally won 2 rounds of racing that year, which probably made him want to quit, to be honest with you. But then he hired Wes Cerny to be the crew chief away from Bernstein, and he was going to go guns a-blazing for that last season, him driving. He didn't know where it was going to go because his contract ended with Skoll and all that. So it's like, I wanted to be a part of it. And literally, it was like 3rd race in, we won. He ended up finishing 2nd in the points that year and had an awesome year from only winning 2 rounds of racing the following year. So it was great. But in the middle of all that, am I talking too much?
No.
I'm okay? All right. Yeah. I know I don't talk more than 4, so we're all right. So, but what early in the season, he wanted to go testing, and he had a sponsor commitment, and he couldn't go testing, and so Cerny, and the shops were really small back then, and so like I'm in a solvent tank over there washing parts, and Perdome and Wes Cerny, they're arguing about like the testing. Well, Snake, he wants to go testing, but he can't go. So they're trying to find a driver to do this. And like they talked about McEwen, but then McEwen couldn't fit in the car, and this guy, and all these different things are going on. And then finally, like Snake's like almost bites his lip. He goes, you know what you need to do? And he's like looking around the shop. He goes, you need to get that kid his license. You guys can go testing anytime you want. And then it doesn't even matter if I'm around or not. And I'm washing parts going, yeah, that's what we need to do. So it was... and literally, that's what happened. So it was at Gainesville. That was the race. We're gonna. They told me we're gonna test after the event, and you're gonna get. We're gonna make a few runs with you and let you get your license and make some runs. And he's like, "You got your gear with you?" And I'm like, "I ain't got my gear with me." And he's, "Why wouldn't you have your gear?" I'm like, I go, if it came down to it, I'll have it shipped. Like I wasn't going to be so cocky to have my driving gear in his trailer. So, so literally had it shipped to Florida, got fitted for the car. Literally had to add 4 inches to the steering because like Snake is so long compared to me. 4 inches to the steering wheel and put a wood block duct tape to the clutch pedal so I could reach the clutch pedal. Like, no kid. I still have the extension for the steering wheel. I mean, it's a and got in the car and made the first run I made in that car, the quickest I'd ever been in an alcohol dragster was 6 flat. They tell me if everything feels fine, run to half track, shut it off, and go through. I run to half track and I run a 590. I shut it off and I coast the rest of the way. And I was like, man, I thought I knew what power was. I had no idea. It was just so much power. Then the next run, come back. Okay, if it runs a little bit, if it runs good, run it to 3/4 track. And okay, so I'm coming up on the 1,000-foot clocks because that's, used to be 3/4 track at one point in time. And coming up on it, and I hear the pitch of the engine just change just a little bit, and I got out of throttle, shut it off. They asked me how'd it feel. I'm like, well, I felt, carried the front end a bunch, and all that, and set it down and got down there and just coming up on 1,000 foot and put a cylinder out, and I could hear the engine and clicked it off, and on that run there, run the 3/4 track, I run 490, and at the time, I mean, this is going. The photos are black and white. That's how long ago it was. But there was people that were racing that had never gone in the 4-second time, and I had gone a 3/4 track. I run 490. Like, for me, I don't care if I made another run in my life. That's how I felt about it. It was so awesome. And then so we come back to the pits. And then a big rainstorm hits, and I'm like, well, it's done. I'm not going to get my license, but I don't care. I got to run in a top fuel car, and it was cool. And Cerny asked me, well, how did it feel? And I'm like, well, I mean, it felt pretty good, but, when it left, and now frame yourself, because when he asked me, what I thought of it, I'm still thinking of myself as a crew person standing on the starting line watching the car go down the racetrack, and that's how I'm framing my answer, not thinking of it from a driver's standpoint, because I've got a total of 2 runs under my belt. So he asked me what I thought of the run, and I'm like, well, to be honest with you, the way it was carried, it picked the front end up, it kind of seemed like it was, and you'll laugh, but I said, kind of seemed like it was down on power and climbed the ring gear. And he jumped so far over me, like I got 2 runs under my belt, and I'm telling him his car's got down on power, that was like one of the dumb things I said. So he jumped on, oh, you think so? Well, with that being said, and then the rain came, so I'm not going to get another run and all that. And so, well, all of a sudden it's Gainesville. It stops raining, and it dries up real fast. Well, we're going to make another run. Wow, okay. So these cars, when you make a adjustment to the weight of the front end of the cars, you do it in 2-pound increments. Well, for that run, they literally put 15 pounds of weight on the front end, and I'm like, that isn't normal, but he's going to make sure that it doesn't carry the front end. So he has to hear about it. So it's like, all right. So we go out there, front end stayed down, and I'm driving it down there, and I'm getting close to the finish line, and then it put another cylinder out again, and I lift off the throttle, shut it off, go through, and we ended up running a 4.76 seconds at 270 miles an hour, something like that. Now, let me frame this up for you. The national record at the time was a 474. The quickest Don Perdome had ever been was a 479, and I just ran 476. So I'm like, I'll the disclaimer is I was 10 pounds lighter than him too. So I'll say I was just lighter, and that's why it did. But with that, when Cerny put the weight on the front end, he's gonna show me that what power is. So, but he turned the tune-up up. So we made that run, and I was thrilled. Not that I made that quick of a run, but the guys at the time that were kicking everybody's rear end in was the Coletta team. Scott Coletta and Dick LaHaye, which ended up being my crew chief later on. But and they were flying. They were running so good. Well, that run there let me know we could run with them, and that's what I was really excited about. But at the time, getting that run and getting my license, it was just. But we didn't know where it was going to go from that point, because he was losing Skoll as a sponsorship. But later on in the year, found out Miller was looking at the NHRA, and Snake was friends with Rusty Wallace through the whole Blue Max, when Rusty used to drive for Raymond Beadle and the Blue Max team and all that. And one thing led to another, and we got a meeting with Miller right after Prudhomme had won Brainerd that year, so it was like perfect timing. And heck, we had Miller for 12 years, so a bunch of those wins and a couple of them championships were in Miller colors. It was a ride, but I got to be at Prudhomme for 20 years. Yeah.
Does Miller send you any beer every so often? Just as
funny that you say that, but like when we lost our deal, like they would literally send to the house like 5 cases a month, because there was one point that we were holding some type of party or something, and I went to the store and I was telling my boss at Miller, I went down to the store, and he's like, "You're buying beer?" And I'm like, "Yeah," like, and he's like, "My driver doesn't buy beer, like he's gonna send beer," and I'm like, "As you wish," like so with that, I got 5 cases a month to the it was probably 3 years after that deal was over before they stopped sending 5 cases a month to the house. I wasn't sending them a memo, but no, great company. Gosh, I just had so much. I enjoyed them. I really enjoyed the beer. Racing Kenny Bernstein, him in that Bud car, he was such a great driver, and I was nowhere near as good as him. But our car ran as good as him, and if we were going to race him, I had to be a better driver, and it kind of forced me to be a better driver. And I just, I think the world of that team, and I miss that. I hate that we don't have those kind of rivalries in the NHRA anymore with, the Budweiser and the Millers and the different, like battles, because people enjoy that. It gives them something. They're up in the stands and, John back and forth and our sport, maybe not just in NHRA, but in other forms as well too, because you don't see the beer companies as active as much as they get bought out by European companies, and they think different on the advertising, and the business model of racing is the pricing is increased, and what you can, the ROI is just it's just made it more challenging. But man, that was I loved that time. I loved that time so much. It was fun. I was glad to be a part of it.
And I'll bet you'd be thrilled to death to get back in and start all over again.
It was I tell people like I could sit in that car and you get strapped in, and it's just like home, let's say your office. It's just it feels right. I mean I literally feel like I could run over a landmine and that car's going to take care of me. And some of them videos and pictures that are out there, I have run over some landmines, But I still go home at night. My wife and the kids still recognize me, and I think the world of all the safety that not just but some of the factories, General Motors helped a lot with the safety of the cars and making improvements to them, sending their people out there, bringing in the Hans device. I ordered a Hans device after one of my accidents, and it got delivered to me the weekend that Dale Earnhardt died. And it took probably 5 years before it was mandated in the NHRA. But I think the world of companies like GM that came in, they were buying Hans devices and giving them away to people on Ford teams and Toyota teams and stuff like that. They just wanted the drivers to be safe, and it's like, what companies do that? So when I drive I haven't had an association with Chevrolet in a long time, but let me tell you, I still drive a Chevy pickup truck because of how much they took care of me all the years. So I mean, people like that. For sure.
The situation, yeah. In the situation you find yourself in, the question came up, is there anything that race fans can do to help you in your situation?
Oh boy, I don't know. Get on if you get called for jury duty, sign up for it. I don't know. I
hadn't thought of that, but there you go.
Yeah, gosh, I don't know. It's just it's been really challenging to try and get some of the answers on how things, the whole process, and you don't get answers, and everything's quiet and secretive and all that. And it's like, here we are, you know, like you got to go through that to try and get some answers. And so that's kind of where we're at with it. I don't want anybody else in the world to ever have to go through what I'm going through right now. And if this process will fix that, something, you know, it'll be a better shape for, you know, the next generation, my kids and others to come.
The next question is, I know you and Jeff and Joe and Scott are friends. Do you ever think of saying to them, how would you like to take a two-seater and you run it, my car, at NHRA events?
I'd be down for it.
You think
Yeah.
You think they could get in the door where you had trouble?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, we've absolutely talked about that because it's been pretty challenging right now. I mean, and where the IndyCar experience has really helped a ton with me. I mean, they just opened up their books and everything that they could possibly. They've been to the shop before and saw their car. They think it's awesome. Gosh, they put me around the track with Mario. I got to go around the track. He got me up to I got 2 laps, one at 194 and one 195. So I told him I'm going to return the favor. I'm going to send him down the track because I just, you know, with the 500 and that just passed, and there was so much talk about the two-seater and how, you know, like so much that you can do with that. I mean, picking up Mike Tirico at the airport and driving him to the speedway, driving him to work in the two-seater IndyCar, like that, how cool is that? And then Forbes does an article saying that the two-seater is the best marketing tool in motorsports.
Did you copy that article and send it to NHRA office?
No, I just I read the article though. but it's you have there's so, you know, the world that we live in isn't the world that we lived in, you know, 50 years ago or 20 years ago or even 5 years ago. The technology is, you know, like you have to keep up with it and you have to keep people's interests going. And if you don't change, you're going to get left in the past. So you're always having to think of things to do to make what you're doing relevant to the world. You're not just talking to everybody here. You're talking to the world right now. You couldn't do that 20 years ago.
I couldn't do it 10 years ago because I didn't know how.
So my point is, it's like there's always progress. You're always having to progress to be able to stay current. Well, you know, a 2-seat, you know, drag race car that goes it goes 160 miles an hour. I could buy a Dodge Hellcat that can go 160 mile an hour off the dealer floor. So it's like, you know, but having something, you know, there's not a lot of people in the world that can say they've been in a top fuel car, and I give those people that opportunity, anybody that opportunity to do that. And that's I want to take people backstage. It's an awesome feeling because I could come to I poll people all the time. Would you ever drive a top fuel car? Hell no. You know, like they don't want to have no part of it. Would you want to go on a ride in it? Yeah, right? So, you know, not to steal a page from IndyCar, but, you know, let a 3-time champ take you down the track. You've seen some of the stuff I've gone through, and I'm still here. So, like, the cars are built safe, you know, and so that's where we're at.
And you have forgotten Jack Hewitt built a 2-seat sprint car, and he took people for quite a while, a number of years.
Don't even go there. MotoGP has a 2-seater experience. They go 180 miles an hour with somebody on the back of a MotoGP bike. Really?
That's crazy.
I'm telling, it's a real deal. So it's like, really? Like, really? So, yeah, I think everybody's, you know, come on. It'll happen.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm sure with everyone here, I think the same thing. I hope it all works out for you and get things straightened out and get you back in a car. I think you look better with a helmet on and a fire suit.
What are you trying to say?
You need to get in the seat of a car.
No, I appreciate you having me on your show, and I'm sorry, you know, like being a dad, getting the opportunity with one son graduating. My daughter's a junior and she plays high school. She plays club soccer and on the varsity team at high school. So that's going on. And in 2 years, she's not going to be doing that anymore. So, like, that time, like, I'm trying to absorb all that time while I can. I think God's got a plan for me. Not to get all religious, but it's like I'm taking advantage of this time that I'm not at all these races. I'm eating it up with my kids and going to all this stuff. Because, my oldest, like I said, he's going to IUPUI downtown, and all of a sudden, you won't have those opportunities anymore. And I'm trying to take advantage of them right now. So thanks again for having me, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
What do you think? Should we try and get it back sometime in between?
You got it. Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Three-time world champion, Larry Dixon.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
My next two guests are saying, well, it's our turn now, finally.
Yeah, after I wore out. Sorry, guys.
Not a problem. Thanks, though. Yeah. Thanks, appreciate it. Want to remind you, if you're looking for a newer, experienced Chevrolet, you got to go see Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville. You'll find out why he is one of the top companies, and when he sells you a car, he doesn't stand behind you, he stands alongside you. That's Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville. You just take I-69 North, exit 234, go east 1 mile on the right, you won't miss it. Sam Pierce Chevrolet. And the IndyCar racing experience is the home of the most exciting race car ride in America. It's a two-seater. If you want to get a hold of one, you can go to IndyRacingExperience.com and find a date they're open and contact them, or you can call the office at 317-243-7171. Talk to Shonda. When you're online, put in a promo box, put SJ1, you get a 50% discount. Is it time for you to get the insurance for your home, your car, or your commercial property? Do what many people have done. They call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance at 5004 West 16th Street in Peru Speedway, and you'll find that he will help you. He's got good prices, better coverage for less money. You'll be surprised. Give him a call. Number is 317-248-0070. You need something embroidered? Need something sewed up? Why not call Stitches 2 at Gasoline Alley? Call Fran. She loves to talk. She'll tell you what you can do and how you can do it. Give her a call. Number 317-271-3444. And if you're looking for a vintage car, the vintage car is still available, Bill, down at your shop. Bill, is the vintage car still available? No or yes? Yeah. You got to go down to the Grand King shop at 8155 Crawfordsville Road, or you give them a call, number 317-820-3595. Talk to them about it. It's a good car. You'll love it. Want to also mention, can you turn, where the hell do you go? Put the upcoming this Saturday night at McGilvery's. It's the Beep Line. You're never on hold with Beep Line, so if you're interested, you got to come out here. They're a great band. You'll love it. They'll be here starting at 9 o'clock on Saturday night. And if you want to hear the roar of yesteryear, it's back on the 15th and 16th of June at the Milwaukee Mile. You get to see the vintage Indy registry. They got, about 35, 37 cars, something like that. And Mike Lashman, the co-founder, will be here next week. So if you're looking for it, vintage Indy cars, the Milwaukee Mile have them for 2 days. So check it out. Joining me now are two gentlemen that I invited because there's been things going on at the start of the season, and they're in and amongst it and will be able to tell us what in the world's going on. Sitting next to me, a guy you've probably never seen, but if you listen to the radio during the races, you'll hear him. He is now I trained him. I was up helping him when he was spotting for the radio network, and I clued him into how things and what to look for. And lo and behold, when the opportunity came, they jumped at it. He is now the voice of the Indianapolis 500, my friend, Mr. Mike Jaynes.
Thanks, Don.
Oh, yeah.
I just checked my driver's license on it's Mark Jaynes.
What did I say? I said Mark Jaynes.
You said Mike, but that's okay.
Well, I'm going to change it. I like it better.
Damn it, Mark, is what my wife calls me. So that's appropriate, too.
And sitting next to him is one of the two writers for probably, I think, the best informational service that you could have in any sport. They copy everything. They can send you, if you subscribe to them, go to TracksideOnline.com and subscribe. It's not that expensive. You want to know what's going on, who's doing what, who's saying what, they got it all. And when they talk to the crews and the owners and the teams, the sponsors, they get the straight story because these guys give it to them. I love reading what he writes, and more often than not, when I see a good article, I put it on my stuff. And he agreed to come here tonight, back from a big weekend at Detroit, partly rain and partly sunny. Please welcome Mr. Steve Wittich.
Hi, everybody.
Steve, I got a lot of emails about the red flag and the restart of the race under caution, which seemed to run about half of the afternoon, and you went through the whole thing. You'd be surprised the number of people said, why did it take so long to restart the race? And you went through the whole thing because you sat down with Kyle Novak and he told you.
Yeah, it was because I had the same question myself. It was one of the things I wanted to find out when I went to Detroit. I wanted to sit down with Kyle and find out why the yellow was so long surrounding the red flag, and it was just a matter of IndyCar has a set list of procedures that they go through when the yellow flag comes out, and it just so happened that everything that could lengthened it. Even before the red came out, Piggott was leading. He was just into turn one, so that means he had to come all the way around before the pace car could pick him up. That meant everyone else had to come back around, so there's an extra lap there. Then when they brought out the red flag, where they line up the cars in pit road is way down at the south end. Well, the crews at the north end, it takes an extra, when they go back yellow, it takes an extra lap for them to get back to their pits. Then Piggott had to come in for emergency service, which put, I think, 5 cars in front of Rossi, the leader. Well, their procedures say those cars have to get the wave around. There's another lap to take up. And then they had to open the pits. And then what was the next thing? Oh, it got to lap 185, and in the rule book it says if in the last 15 laps, lap down cars have to go to the back of the field. So then they took another lap to do that. I don't think Kyle thought it was ideal, and they might look at things, but they followed their procedures, and it was nice to at least get an explanation on it. I don't know if I agree with the way it happened, but it was nice to know that it actually followed the procedures.
Well, strangely enough, when I saw that, I copied it, and I sent it to a whole slew of people who asked, what was that? And of course, I have no idea. They didn't call and say, Don, what do you think about this? They didn't ask. So, the other thing I find about what you guys are doing is covering the Road to Indy program.
That's $5, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, right straight to Dan Anderson.
Yeah, well.
I've done it a few times, so you're okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not a problem.
I've done it quite a few times.
But, it's disturbing to a degree because the next step from IndyCar below to go up to IndyCar is the lights. And if you didn't spend $50 or whatever it was, you can't watch them. They're no exposure whatsoever.
No comment. You know what? Actually, outside the U.S., there is more exposure than inside the U.S. right now. I'm going to guess something will change about that down the road, but that's way above my pay grade, and it's part of the deal with NBC and NBC Gold, so it's sort of just the way it has to be for now. But yeah, it's not ideal. Not a lot of people get to watch it, unfortunately.
I have a feeling also will change. Mark, the voice of the 500.
Yes, sir.
Is that hard to carry around when people see you in the street now? There's the voice of the 500.
I don't get that a lot. Just random people on the street. I do get it from time to time, and it's something that a couple of my predecessors in Paul Page and Bob Jenkins have both strongly encouraged me to start to embrace and be comfortable with, and I've started to do just that. I was talking to Howdy Bell earlier, and
Howdy Bell, is he still awake?
I'm pleased that Howdy was pleased with our broadcast, because obviously a longtime member of our radio network, and it's important to all of us to have the acceptance and appreciation and respect of those like Howdy that did so much to build up the Indy 500 and the network, for sure. Thank you very much. And Did I miss anything? You wrote that down. I wanted to make sure I read it the way you told me to. So okay, thank you. But no, it's still, as I told him, as I've said here before, Monrovia, Indiana zone. To get to that lofty perch is another indication of just what a great country it is in which we live, for sure.
How? First off, it seemed to me that the changes they made in the car over the winter worked. There was a lot of complaining about last year's race. Passing was difficult and so forth, but it seemed to me that the changes they made, the small changes, albeit, made the racing better.
I think that it's not a blank sheet of paper for the teams anymore. I mean, they have a full year's worth of data at almost all of those racetracks. Drivers are certainly more comfortable with the cars and getting more comfortable. But sure, I mean, they made some tweaks here and there. But by and large, I just think it's, Steve, I think it's a comfort level that the teams and their drivers have with this package. I think that it's been the biggest difference in making it more competitive.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think Mark's right. It's just they've gotten more comfortable. They've found more things. They've had part of the problem going to the Universal Aero Kit is the teams didn't have a lot of the parts till not too long before the 500 last year. Now they've had these parts over the winter. They've been able to take them into the wind tunnels. They've been able to do their own testing on them, so that's definitely improved things. But yeah, though IndyCar made some changes. Firestone made the biggest change to the right side tires. They were a lot better this year. They didn't grain as much when you follow closely, so it allowed them to get a little closer in the corners, which allowed some more passing. There was some other stuff they did to them. Kara Adams went into it in detail, and I only understand about an eighth of it. But something about the contact patch when it unloads was stayed bigger this year instead of it before it would, when it would unload it off the corner, it would get smaller and that would cause understeer. So they did something there, and that I think that was definitely the biggest. That and then the teams having another year.
I asked a couple of the lights drivers, if you miss the lights, the Freedom 100, you missed one hell of a race again. Would you guys like to see maybe 150 miles and or even 100 miles and have a pit stop? And they said, yeah, that might be all right.
Yeah, I worry about the costs, right? It's just,
that's
it's
the
like, you have to have the crews and the equipment to do pit stops, and that just makes it that much more expensive, and it's already an expensive category to begin with. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it. You might be able to get, I don't know, I have to check, maybe 5 more miles out of it. But, I don't mind it being 100. I think it's a nice even number, and it's worked. So it's one of those things where I'm not a big fan of changing things if they work.
Yeah, that's right. And this year's race was the fourth closest in history, so something's going on here because the racing has been, for the lights here at the speed, has been spectacular.
Yeah, it really has. It's been fun to watch, and it's good for the drivers. It doesn't necessarily mimic what they get in IndyCar at IMS, but it's very good for them. It gives them a chance to do car control and how to race close and how to respect your competitor, which you're going to see a lot more when they go to tracks like Iowa or Gateway. It's actually probably mimics that more than anything else, what you see at the Speedway. But yeah, it's damn entertaining.
Mark, the radio network used to be the audio for the streaming. It is no longer. Strictly can be found on the radio. Has that affected your audience that you're aware of?
Well, you can still get it on IndyCarRadio.com. You get it on Race Control, I believe, at IndyCar.com. We also have, I think if you have a smartphone and you haven't downloaded the TuneIn app, you probably should. It's something cool that our engineer Rick Evans and our network director Wally Levitt came up with a couple of years ago. If you download that, you look for IndyCar Radio. All of the shows that we do for Indy Lights and IndyCar, practice, qualifying, and racing are all live on that app. And that kind of eliminates the guesswork of trying to find the local affiliate in a particular town, or even here when Emmis does or doesn't decide to carry our events. That's another story for another show. But when we're not on, you can catch vintage Indy 500s from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. and you can also get more recent NTT IndyCar Series races too. So it's a really cool app, and I think it's very entertaining. And every now and then I'll get a text message or a direct message from someone who said, they're listening to the Long Beach race from 3 years ago, or they're listening to the 68 500 or something. So you add that with the terrestrial radio, also Sirius and XM, who carries our races and our qualifying shows for the NTT IndyCar Series, and I think there's still plenty of places, plenty of ways for people to hopefully enjoy what we do, for sure.
I know I listen every opportunity I get. I tune in and listen because I like listening to you guys. Now somebody's cut me to the quick here. I mean,
Okay.
they really did it.
All right. Again?
Yeah. Don, what do you mean you trained Mark? You would not even climb the billboard in Milwaukee.
Amen. Amen.
Who's the wise ass that sent that up here?
I didn't want to climb the billboard in Milwaukee, so I understand how Don felt.
was a little sketchy too.
I think the billboard in Milwaukee was there before the racetrack. That's how old it was. It was different for sure.
It was the only place that I ever climbed up of it that wobbled in the wind, and there wasn't any.
Man, yeah, that's right. It's
Holy smoke!
something else.
How much has broadcasting? You've been with the IRL when it started. You've been with them all along, and now you are in the booth as the voice of the 500. And how much has all that changed since you got here?
Well, I mean, when I started in '96, we had no idea that streaming would ever be a possibility. I mean, that was just so far away from our thought process. I mean, we were, entering the computer age for sure with the network, but it was a lot different, and we didn't imagine there would be all these other platforms out there in which people could listen to us. I think that because of that, the show has had to get a lot faster, and of course, racing itself has changed. It's faster too. I mean, if you go back and you listen to some of those the 500 broadcasts from the 60s and 70s in particular, I mean, one of the starting positions when you first joined the radio network was the halfway point of the back straightaway. And Sid would go to turn 1, back to Sid, to 2, back to Sid, halfway down the backstretch, back to Sid, 3, and so on and so forth. And last year we didn't have turn 1, and it really didn't affect the broadcast that much. Now, because we changed positions to the fourth floor of the media center, and it cut my sight line away from turn 1, we had to put turn 1 back in. But I can't imagine, having to fill that much time as well and as eloquently as they did that in those days. They were, in addition to play-by-play, they were storytellers. One of these days you have to invite him up, and Howdy could tell you the story about him referencing Johnny Rutherford, like he had so much time to call Johnny going through turn 2 that he referenced the fact that JR liked homemade strawberry ice cream, and he knew that for a fact. And that's a great story because I asked him about it. But we just, quite frankly, we don't have that kind of time now. I mean, you have to, here they come, and there they go. It's literally that quick. So it's changed a lot in the 24 years that I've done it, for sure.
Has the racing improved?
I think I was a big fan of the couple of years that we first had the DW12 chassis. I liked the 60-some-odd passes we had and the 40-some-odd passes the next year. I liked the way that package raced on the road and street courses a lot. I think it was very competitive. They could lay on one another a little bit, and it'd be a little aggressive at different, road and street courses. It's different for sure. I know that Mike King and I had a lot of fun on those mile and a halves and those ovals when it was an all oval series. I mean, it was exhausting, but it was a heck of a lot of fun. But I think nowadays what's entertaining for me and what makes it enjoyable is having covered Indy Lights for so many years now. There's a lot of those guys that I remember meeting for the first time when they first came to that series. Joseph Newgarden, James Hinchcliffe, Charlie Kimball, and so on and so forth. Anders Krohn, our driver analyst, and I were talking about it several years ago when me and Kevin Lee and Jake Query were out doing the ladder series out at Raceway Park, and Anders was racing with Connor Daly and I think it was Star Mazda at that time, and laughing about those days. So it's I don't know that it's better. I wouldn't call it worse. I guess I could just say it's different for sure.
Steve, one of the things that you do, because you don't sit in a booth and broadcast race, you run out and talk to. How do you find the European drivers, the new ones that have come from Formula One, where I've known a sponsor of a car, and I forget the guy's name, it was a big name, big F1 star. They never even met him, and they spent $30 or $40 million and never met the guy. How are they accepting you when you come and ask a lot of questions, or the fans come around? Are they getting acclimated to the American way of PR?
Yeah, I think we've been lucky with the drivers we've had. I'll put Fernando Alonso in a different spot. He's actually been really good to deal with, but he's more that F1. You've got to have an appointment. He's only going to take a few questions. But someone like Marcus Ericsson has been fantastic to deal with, but I'm not surprised. I've got a couple other journalist friends in the F1 world, and when he announced, I kind of asked, okay, what's he like? And he's not, I think, the typical Formula One driver. He's very approachable, and he's immersed himself into the IndyCar world as well as I've seen anybody. He made the decision to move to Indianapolis. He lives here. He's at the shop every day with the guys. He does the team barbecues. He's not really he's more like a American IndyCar driver in that sense, and most of the guys we've had come over have been like that. We've been lucky.
How about Felix?
Felix is awesome. I got to cover Felix in Indy Lights, and I wasn't sure what to expect with him, but he's one of those guys. When once he gets opened up, and it'll take him a little bit with the IndyCar side of things, but once he opens up, he's one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, I talked to him in St. Pete and enjoyed the conversation. I think the guy that people are starting to understand now and like is Alexander Rossi. I think he's becoming quite popular.
Yeah, he is. I wasn't sold on, I won't lie, I wasn't sold on Alexander when he first came over here. It took a while. At some point I'm going to write the story. I'll tell you guys now. Interesting story. I think it was the Grand Prix the year he won the 500, so his first year here. I was working with Doc Punch, and Alexander's dad, Peter, came to Doc and myself and said, hey, I don't know if this is working out. And, Doc's from the NASCAR world, so he started asking him all about, Nationwide and how do you get into that. And then, 2 weeks later, we're interviewing him in Victory Lane, and that all ended. And I can't think of anybody that loves IndyCar more than he does right now. He gets it. He understands it. He loves every single part of it. And, man, is he competitive. Holy cow. He is really competitive. But he's also, people saw online, him making a jab at Oriole this weekend. That was him just having fun. I don't think that he likes to have fun. But he's going to be serious, too. He's a hard competitor.
Yeah, he is. Asked him if he was satisfied with second. He said, no, I come here to win.
No, he wanted nothing to do with talking about the Indianapolis 500 at Detroit this weekend, and that didn't stop us from asking the questions and him rolling his eyes at us. But that's our job, and I think he understands that. But he wanted nothing to do with talking about that. He just wants to win.
Yeah, I've often speculated that the guys that finished 6th, 7th, or 8th are a little happier than the guy who finished the second.
Yeah, no, he was not happy with the second place finish at all. So and then to finish second again the very next race, it didn't sit well with him. But I think he'll look back on the last 3 races, and second, 5th, not so bad. He's back in the championship, and I think I think it's going to be a good. It should be good.
I think he's learning to take the opportunities that he has and make the most of them. And if that means second place, then that means second place in the bigger picture of the championship. A la, what Scott Dixon has made a career of doing. Don't get me wrong, he wants to win for sure, and I think we're poised for a championship battle between he and Joseph Newgarden that we're going to have a lot of fun watching for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see which one, if either, cracks first. But for sure, he's an incredible talent, and as Steve has suggested, totally and completely has embraced being an IndyCar Series driver when there was speculation, several weeks after he won the 500, that he might not stay here. But I think he's here for the long haul for sure.
From what I understand, what he says, he enjoys the team. He loves the guys. He's got a great crew. He's happy.
Yeah.
And if he was in Formula One, they'd say, Alexander who?
Yeah,
Now you say
he'd probably be. It's an unfortunate situation over there right now for those guys. So, and it's one of those things, I get Americans wanting to compete over there, but I also don't think an American's ever going to get a proper shot at it. It's just the European way. They don't, they're going to protect their own. And it's just, unless you've got oodles and oodles and oodles of dollars, you're not going to make it. It's just that simple. Unless you're, Nicholas Latifi, or there's a couple Canadian kids that obviously have money, but other than that, it's Lance Stroll. But if you don't have just ridiculous amounts of money, you're just not going to get a fair shot over there. You look at a guy like Robert Wickens. Robert should have been a Formula One driver. Absolutely no ifs or buts about it. Red Bull drops him after he finishes second in a championship. That's it, right? So, it's just doesn't seem to be that North Americans get a fair shot over there.
That's all right. We like him here.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, what do you think about Connor getting a shot with Carlin this weekend?
I'm happy for him. I mean, obviously he's a talented racer and had a really solid effort for Andretti Autosport. A likable guy, a tireless ambassador for the sport. It's a team that Steve knows that he has some history with, so there's familiarity there. And believe it or not, for those that might not remember, I'm sure Steve does. I think it was at Long Beach. He actually had shorter notice than this.
Yes.
In terms of getting into a race car and happened to perform pretty well, if memory serves me correctly. So I'm happy for him. I mean, we're going to be without Anders Krohn this weekend. He has some other responsibilities with his full-time company, Coforce, and we had initially reached out to a couple of different drivers, and Connor, he didn't divulge too much information, but had told me about a week and a half ago that Texas might not be a possibility in terms of the booth. So we're happy for him for sure. We wish him well this weekend, and hopefully this will lead to opportunities the rest of the season on the ovals for Carlin.
Oh yeah. And the interesting thing about it is, for a guy who has part-time rides, he's about one of the more popular drivers in the series. Holy Toledo! I watched him follow him around for a little while at St. Petersburg. He couldn't go anywhere.
That's what happens when you work hard at it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Sure.
And he's an approachable guy.
And he wants to be an IndyCar driver, and that's clear. And that's a likable quality for a lot of us, right? Like we're IndyCar fans, and we want guys that want to be in IndyCar. So.
Well, I'll tell you, it's kind of interesting that the way the season's going. When do you see the lights picking up car count?
Hopefully next year. They're really working hard at it. I know they are, but it's tough. It's not easy right now. There's just a lot of factors. One of the main ones being South American economies are pretty crummy right now, which, that eliminates a few drivers, and the European ladder's kind of sorted itself out, which hurts. And they've got to get the budget down, and I think they know that. And they've got to get the team count up, and they're working on it, working really hard on it. They've you haven't had Johnny on yet, Baker, have you? No, we need to get Johnny over here. He's working really hard at forging some more alliances with European series in other parts of the world that'll kind of start to feed some drivers in. And I think you'll naturally see the field increase because the Indy Pro 2000 field's bigger this year. The USF 2000 field's strong. There's a year there where the switchover year between Pro Mazda and Indy Pro 2000, like the switchover car year, it was just nobody moved up, and that hurts, right? If you have two or three guys move up and two or three newcomers and then a bunch of stay, then all of a sudden you've got 12 to 15 car fields. And I know we saw 25 car fields back whenever you were calling it, Mark, but I don't see that ever happening again. It's just not feasible.
Roger Bailey, when he was running it, said he would retire when he got 33 Indy Lights cars to start
yes,
the Freedom
that would
100.
be awesome.
He never made it, but he
They worked hard at it.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, too, with that series, not only has it become a ladder series for drivers, but it's become a ladder series for crew members and more importantly for race teams. And there was a mass exodus a couple of years ago of drivers and race teams all at the same time, and that had an adverse impact on on the car counts. I guess it was the one downside to that kind of success. I think it's proven if you look at the driver roster in the NTT IndyCar Series now that regardless of the fact that the car counts have been low recently for the past few years, in fact, I think it's still that overall it's a formula that seems to be really effective, especially now that they've attached it to the point where you can take it all the way back to karting, and there's a clear-cut path to the IndyCar Series.
Yeah, and there's the fields haven't been as big as we like them, but they've been as deeper than they've ever been. Like still, every year, when you look at the 25 car count, you had maybe 3 guys that were IndyCar driver ability. You still have that, if not more. You might have 3 or 4 every year now that are good enough to be IndyCar drivers. I think there's probably 5 guys right now in that field, if not more, that are going to be IndyCar drivers down the road.
And as I've said a number of times, you got 9, 10, 11 cars, but you don't have to wait 2 minutes for the next group to come. They're all running together.
Oh yeah, no, so it's very close.
So they're learning how to pass and how to race with each other, which I think will work up when they get up to the next level. Well, listen, the next race this weekend. When do you leave?
Thursday afternoon.
I see.
Yep.
Have you got a private jet? I understand there's some people here that fly in private jets,
They would prefer to remain nameless. I don't want to call them out here in public, but no, we're taking Rob Blackman, who made his debut on the IMS Radio Network at the 500. Rob is a longtime Central Indiana broadcaster. More recently, has been with the Purdue football and basketball networks and did an amazing job. Rob's going to go to Texas with us. We just we secured Rob to join us in Toronto as well. So we look forward to that trip, and we're going to introduce him to Joe T. Garcia's in the stockyards in Fort Worth, which is a must-do when you go to Texas for sure. So
you're going to start him off with that?
Yeah, we are.
No,
throw him in the deep end.
I probably shouldn't bring this up, but I was available.
We knew that.
Good.
You just set it right on the tee, and I hit it right down the fairway. Well done, Don. Thank you very much.
Steve, when do you leave? I mean, in your organization, does Patrick send you, or do you have to walk or drive?
Actually, I'm not going to this one this weekend. It's one of 2 I missed. So I've missed Long Beach, and I'm missing this one. And with only the one series and the night races, it's pretty easy for one person to cover it. So I had to do the double header alone last weekend, so he gets this one by himself.
Oh, I see. His wife gave him the weekend off?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's good.
That's
nice.
I think he might be bringing his daughter with him, so that's kind of cool.
Well, there you go. Now, just don't forget, when you're here, you can listen to Mark working.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I listen to these guys.
He helps us out quite a bit. We get text messages from both of you, by and large, during the race weekend for sure.
All right. I want to tell you, Mark, having had the opportunity and the honor of working with you for a number of years as your sidekick, we had great seats all the time. Unfortunately, nobody brought Wally didn't send up the shrimp cocktails.
No, we never got that.
But
we did watch a lot of cool racing from a lot of cool venues.
Great spot, except for the billboard in Milwaukee.
But the school bus in Chicago, the top of the school bus in Chicago Joliet made up for that. Those were great guys.
Boy, those guys really took care of us.
Yeah,
that was
they
nice.
sure did.
In fact,
my favorite with Mark was Baltimore.
Yeah, that's right.
That
was a good perch in Baltimore. Yeah, it was nice watching.
Out on the harbor.
And, it was nice watching the safety truck come to the field after they throw the green flag and they were coming the opposite direction. That was an interesting moment. For sure.
You guys were so good. There was a one-shot deal, and they went poof.
Yeah.
They must have been impressed with you. Well, I don't know what to say other than the job that you do, Mark, in my opinion, is second to none in the the staff that you have. Just makes it enjoyable to listen. And I'll tell you what, I love listening to Anders. I mean, the guy understands, and he can tell you what's going on in language you know what it is. It's excellent. I love listening to him.
He pumped a lot of energy into the show for sure, and I think he is part of that fraternity of Hinch and Connor and Joseph Newgarden and that bunch who came up essentially together. been together for a number of years. Now, obviously, Anders' path took him out of the cockpit and into the broadcast booth, but I think he too is responsible for a lot of the renewed enthusiasm at open wheel racing, and we're blessed to have him for sure. And that's about as long as I'm going to say nice things about Anders, because he can't handle it. He's far too immature, so we can't be too positive with it.
But see, the good thing about it is you ask the right questions, so he gets to answer the intelligent questions.
Thank you.
And I enjoy reading what you write, Steve. If anybody hasn't subscribed to Trackside Online, you're a fool. Let's go to tracksideonline.com, subscribe to it. You want to know what's going on 12 months a year, these guys will tell you.
Yep.
Thank both of you.
All right, Don, thank you.
Thanks for
Voice of
having
the
me, Don.
500, Mark Jaynes, and the editor-in-chief of Trackside Online, Steve Wittich. We will be here next week, same time, same place. I don't know that Howdy will, because, it's another week older. Oh, how did you enjoy the 500 this year? Yeah. Oh.
That's right.
Well, I was trying to talk to you, and I thought you were asleep. Maybe you were. Oh, you weren't there. That's right. I forgot about that. Next week, Paul Diatlovich. You want to hear a character. This is the guy. And I've got another couple people I'm talking to, so you go to autosportradio.com and click on the Autosport Show tab, or you get my look on Facebook for my Facebook. I got 2 pages, Autosport Radio Show and Don K page. Till next week, Don K saying thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, listening. See you next week. Good night.